this is John for MTG Nexus coming at you with another user-submitted burn list. This particular one was by ODoyle Rules, one of our longtime viewers here on the channel. It's an interesting take on kind of mashing old-school mono-red prowess with a burn deck and kind of seeing what happens. So we'll see how this shakes out. As a friendly reminder, if you like red-based content, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel or giving us a follow here on Twitch. And if you'd really like to support the channel, please consider subscribing with your Twitch Prime to our channel here on YouTube. So, what is going on with this deck? You have the Monastery Swiftspear, Soulscar Mage, Bedlam Reveler of an older variant of Mono Red Prowess before M. Hayashi got a hold of the deck, and then you have kind of the Boros Charm, Lava Spike, Riftbolt, Skewer the Critics kind of thing going on for regular burn, and then kind of mashed in the middle you have some Metamorphoses and Light Up the Stages. My biggest concern with this Frankenstein's monster is how clunky is the spells going to be if we're not able to trigger Spectacle consistently for Light Up the Stage and Skewer the Critics with our copies of Soulscar Mage and Monastery Swiftspear. And then how often are we going to get stuck with multiple Bedlams stuck in our hand? So that's kind of the questions that I'm looking at with this list. Beyond that, I kind of like the idea of having a late game card in something like Bedlam Reveler that can kind of go over the top in some of the grindier matchups. Refuel our hand, leave a threat behind they have to deal with. Beyond that, I mean, the mana concerns the only main thing I'm really worried about. You know, this is a deck that's going to be very mana hungry with a bunch of 2-drops. One of the things with regular Mono Red Prowess is usually running between 20 to 24 1-drop spells, and we're running 16. Obviously, you know, Riftbolt, Light Up the Stage, Skewer the Critics, these all could potentially be slotted down here. So if you look at it in that way, yeah, theoretically, you know, we have a much cleaner mana base, or much cleaner curve, but, you know, that is a problem. The other thing is, when you're playing Bedlam Reveler, you kind of have to jump through some hoops with your graveyard hate. So we're running a Surgical Extraction and Grafdigger's Cage, which don't particularly interact with our hate, but do give us outs to certain decks. Wear Tears is ODoyle's preferred interaction for enchantments and artifacts. 3 copies of Roiling Vortex for any type of life gain shenanigans. 2 copies of Core Firewalker for the red mirrors. And finally, 3 copies of Path to Exile for any type of bigger creatures that we need to deal with that Soulscar Mage plus burn spells can't always deal with. So, this will be an interesting one to see how it goes. Hopefully it goes well, but I don't know. This is an interesting one. This is an interesting one. Okay, we're on the draw with this hand against Nahuel, who I've played against before. I want to say Eldrazi Tron. Stands perfectly fine. Has a bunch of spells we want to get rid of. Monastery Swiftspear. So hopefully we're not up against Eldrazi Tron. Nope. Okay, so they're on They are on blue-red Prowess. See if they hold open mana or not, or if they just kind of go for the... They kept a one... I was going to say, they kept a one-lander? Hopefully they have to burn something like a... Okay, that's not going to protect your dude. It's going to throw out this Swift Spear as kind of a sacrificial lamb that they have to get out of the way. Hopefully they don't have Stormwing Entity. Nope. Just taking 4 or down to 8 here, which kind of sucks. It's a lot of damage. Two, three, 4. %, blocking. One, two. Yeah, that's way too expensive, and we're just dead, so. Alright, a little bit of a clunky hand there, not a whole lot of interaction for creatures, kind of got come back to get us there a little bit, so. Alright, so we want the Path Exiles. Want the Core Firewalkers. Could potentially want the Wear Tears for Dragon's Claw, although that tends to be a little bit less likely in their version. I think with Bedlam Reveler in my build, I'm not going to worry as much about Dragon's Claw, just because we can literally overpower it in the mid to late game. I'm going to shave one Bedlam Reveler though. Sounds pretty good overall. Just gonna fetch a basic mountain here. Not leading on Canyon because I really don't want to take the extra damage, even if I do want to leave the option to be able to Searing Blaze during their turn. Again, gonna be a little bit conservative with our life total. Go ahead and cast late at the stage here. Bolt and Skewer the critics next turn. Feels like we have a pretty good turn lined up next turn. Sure. I think our opponent may have kept a controlling hand, perhaps. I do find it interesting that you can cast spectacle cards from exile with I think we gotta let this through, you know, even if it is a Lutz. Because even if I've pathed this, I've still taken 1 damage, so... Yep, it was a Lutz. Spire Bluff Canal into what? Into another Lutz. Okay. Alright. Still don't think I like any of the other cards. This card's very... or sorry, this hand is very risky. In fact, I think it is a mulligan because the all creature hand can just get dealt with by their deck so well. This hand's much more interesting to me. Probably putting back Soulscar? That's really awkward. This does decrease the number of... Okay, why are they fetching in response? That's kind of bizarre, but whatever. hold a path here, although I'm not feeling very good about pathing one of their dudes. Alright. Get the Stormwing entity post-combat. Come on, deck. Cough up a white source, please. Actually, I guess white source isn't all that particularly good if it's Inspiring Vantage. Oh, wow. The long, slow death. 1, 2, 3. Like, they're flooding out, and we actively want to draw a white source, so... I guess Metamorphose would be, like, our best draw. Alright, looks like they have a Stormwing entity again. Nothing, huh? There's no way we live through this turn, right? What on earth is their hand? Oh, that explains part of it. They've been chilling on a Kozilek's return. And now we're just dead. We're very dead. Sure. Because don't forget they have the lava dart chilling out here in the graveyard too. Weird match. The old 5-lander we have to ship back. Keep, put back. Nymph? Oh, Amulet. Cool. See if they block. We may have to use the hidden mode on. Basically, what you're saying is we're dead next turn. Yep. The old turn 3 by Amulet. Basically, they go get Valakut and just kind of torpedo us from there. Alright, so I guess we want the Path to Exile. It's not the best, but it's something. Really don't want. Well, Wear Tear does take on a little bit more interest. That they have Dryad. Maybe I bring in one copy of Wear Tear to answer Dryad, potentially. Vivian Boros Charm, it's not, or not Boros Charm, Searing Blaze, it's not the best because we don't know their exact creature composition. But they could have, like, Arboreal Grazer or something, and then that clears it out, or it allows us to attack through a Dryad. Beyond that, I don't really think there's a whole lot we want in this matchup, so. Could bring in Roiling Vortex, but that's a little bit slow in a matchup that they can play the control roll in, but they can also just kill you on turn 3, as we saw. So. So they have to play first. Sounds fine. Not terribly exciting, but fine. So I'm going to be a little bit more liberal with my life total because they don't tend to kill you in small doses. They tend to kill you in chunks, so I'm not as worried about fetching like a Sacred Foundry as I am against something like the Mirror Match or Izzet Prowess. Yep, a Boreal Grazer. This is a bit awkward, right? Because we don't want to give away that they need to block this turn, but they're probably going to block anyway. So I at least want to get this big enough that it's going to incentivize them to block. Really didn't want to draw two paths. You really only really want to draw one path, maybe, to answer Dryad or Titan. Seems about right. Sure. Yep. So they're going to have the mana for Titan regardless. 4, 5, 6. No. Basically handed them the mana for Turn Timber. This is why I'm not a huge fan of Path in this matchup, although I do think it's a necessary evil. So they just have Titan naturally anyway. Let's hope they don't go get Field, but I feel like it's going to be Field Valakut. Oh, they got cute. Let that resolve first, so I'll get Valakuted by... They got cute. Although they're still going to have Turn Timber, aren't they? Take the best shot that we can right now. Hope their draw step and their turn timber are terrible. And we top deck a burn spell. Sure. So they screwed up by playing Field of the Dead. Because that means they can't bounce and replay a life gain land. So if we had Boros Charm in our deck, we could actually kill them. But alas, we don't. So block. Is there any way to stay alive here? So we can block one zombie. Take 6. So we could take 14. So 4 is 8. Problem is they're going to gain a bunch of life here. Or at least if they play smartly, they're going to gain a bunch of life. So So bolting a zombie doesn't really get as much because we have no single top deck that allows us to survive. So I still think I'm supposed to bolt here and try to set up for Bedlam Reveler perhaps. That way we have the most mana available for Bedlam Reveler plus spells. Yeah, I don't care about Field of the Dead at this point, my man. Or woman, I guess. Could be a woman. Presuming you're going to bounce the Radiant Fountain. We go to 2. Well, that's a Bedlam Reveler. And that is a bunch of useless cards. Yeah, next 2 cards are lethal. We played to our outs as best we could. That's all you can do sometimes. Our opponent did get a little too cute there with going for the Valakites. I understand going for the win, but another Path to Exile, especially when we're sitting on cards that we're not casting, just seemed unnecessarily greedy. Okay, so our opponent has a companion of some type, probably Luris. This is one of those hands that, like, doesn't do anything. Like, even if we draw a land, we go Lava Spike on 1. Manamorphose, Manamorphose. Say best case scenario, draw another Manamorphose. Boros Charm them. That would be 5 spells. So we need to hit another land somewhere in that chain. I think especially on the play, this hand just has too much that can go wrong with it. Okay. Immediately mulligan into a no-lander. And then stare at this 5-card hand. There's honestly a real question about whether I want to continue playing this game. If we're against Shadow, I suppose there's a chance we could win this game. There's a lot of other decks that this hand is just going to not quite get there. And I'm not sure if giving up the information is worth it. But here we are. Wait. And I successfully passed turn without playing a land. Cool. I guess given the dearth of spells, it may not matter much, but... yeah, this is just an experimental version that ODoyle sent War Dog. And honestly, it's been more just weirdness that's gotten us in these, like, experimental builds that we've been trying. Okay, so we're up against Shadow, most likely. Bolt my face, set up for a Scourge. Not playing that land is going to come back to bite us here. So if we somehow rip another burn spell that we can cast next turn, we might get this game. That's a big if. So we're basically down to what? Spikes, bolts, skewers? Definitely want the pass. The Boros charms can probably go out. Firewalkers aren't particularly good, both because most of their biggest threats are black, and a lot of their removal is black based. So it's not really worth jumping through the hoops to bring those in. Surgical, not particularly for this matchup. Cage, it could like shut down part of Luris, but I think that's a little too cute. Guess we submit it like this. How are you doing tonight, War Dog, by the way? How is everybody else doing tonight? Yeah, that's a good thing in today's day and age, so to speak. I think we'll keep this hand, but it is not exactly the best in this matchup. A lot of it depends on how their hand is set up, whether this hand's good or not. Scourge adds an extra dimension to Death Shadow matchups that I hadn't realized from the burn side. So we're going to get Inquisition or Thought Seized. Inquisition, probably take Lutz. So the reason you take Lutz there is it represents 2 cards. And this is likely to boil down into a little bit more of an attrition battle in the post-board games, especially since they mulligan to 6. In their favor, the more attrition-y a game goes. What's up, Tweezy? How you doing tonight, man? Thanks for the raid. It's kind of middling, honestly. We're playing a weird version of Burn one of my viewers submitted, and it's not going particularly well so far. One, two, three, four. Some of it's been the matchups, some of it's just been some awkward hands. Like we had one hand where I had one white source for a really long time and got stuck with 2 core firewalkers in hand against Izzet Prowess. We got paired against Amulet, which is just a kind of a terrible matchup for Burn overall. Not giving us a target for that steering blaze, I see. One, two, three, four. I think they would have played Scourge if they had it by now. Their hands just got to be all removal or something dumb. Yeah, still burning on occasion here. Been working on a little bit of Izzet Phoenix here and there too. Came up with a version, I think it was last couple weeks ago. It's playable at least. I don't think it's good, but it's playable. Man, they're just like refusing to play anything into the Searing Blaze, huh? They're like, Bedlam Reveler? Well, those are some awkward cards. Though to be fair, their removal is not particularly set up to deal with things like Bedlam Reveler. Yeah, it was really kind of funny because, like, the first league, right, we see Scourge plus, yeah. Like, the first league we went 4-1, and then other leagues have been 2-3 or 3-2 with it. So I put it down for a little bit. Should still have a basic mountain to go fetch here. Attack with the 1. Guess I should have held on to Soulscar Mage. Maybe would have forced a block out of them. Because they would have had 1 unknown card to deal with. It's definitely a goof on my part here. Wow. They're chump blocking anyway. Interesting. They have something like weird, like Damnation or something? Alright, Tweezy. Catch you later, man. Sure. Blood Chief's Ascension? Or put Lurrus in your hand. Blood Chief's Thirst, whatever the name of that card is. Kolaghan's Command. We're buying Scourge of the Skyclaves. Well, they're going to block no matter what here, right? So I think I'm incentivized to just clear this out of the way. Put them to 1. People are wondering why I'm not cracking the fetch land to thin the deck. With Scourge of the Skyclaves, every life point matters, and their Scourge is currently smaller than any creature or any attack I would make with Bedlam Reveler. Feels like putting Lurrus in their hand. Yep. So that's the reason why I haven't cracked that fetch land, if people were wondering if there was a particular reason. Scourge suddenly becomes a 2020. Okay, I think that's a glitch whiz. Now we gotta win game 3. I still don't think we want surgicals or any of that nonsense. Vortex is interesting, but I still think it's too slow. Ugh, sorry about that. Yeah, I think we just submit as is. So what are my thoughts on this so far? I think I still stand by my initial comments at the beginning of the stream, in that the deck just feels a little too clunky. Like, yeah, theoretically all of these are 1-mana plays, but if they're not, then it becomes really awkward. Opponent's probably trying to piece together what they've seen so far from us. They're like, Bedlam Reveler out of a burn deck? But then again, we're also presenting them a lot of the prowess things. So I can see how this deck gets some percentage points by like screwing with opponents during sideboarding a little bit. Because the same cards you bring in against Bedlam Reveler is probably not the same cards you bring in against Burn most of the time. So maybe I was supposed to consider bringing in like a random copy of Wear Terror for like a Leyline of the Void or something. Once again, this hand's kind of awkward. Do I keep this hand on the draw, though? It's got a lot of 1-mana plays, or potential 1-mana plays. Kind of gets blown up a little bit by an Inquisition, though, on late up the stage. Same would definitely be a gamble. One, two, three. I think I'm going to keep it. It's definitely a gamble, and if this were on the play, I would definitely mulligan. But we still haven't seen any red threats out of them. So I honestly wonder if they're even playing, if they're just Shadow. Which seems weird that you would play that deck without any type of any of the red threats, but okay, they had Bomat Courier. I was like, I know they have to have a threat in there somewhere, right? Or a faster threat, I should say. Alright, well that makes things a little bit easier. I still think... So if I spend... I'm just going to play Soulscar Mage here. So the reason I'm playing Soulscar Mage here is this forces them to remove it to attack with Bomat. So we're kind of scripting at least what one of their plays is. Fatal Push. Yep. Which is interesting because we didn't see either of these threats in the first two games. I mean, we still suspected they were there, but... And now it becomes, which threat do I value killing more this turn? I do think we go ahead and kill Bomat here, although Swift Spear is more damage, simply because I really don't want to allow them to refuel their hand, potentially. And we can hard cast Riftbolt here if we have to. So we have a Scourge, most likely. Yep. So now I have a decision I have to make, and it's going to be a rough one here. Lava Spike. So if they have Team or Battle Rage, we're basically dead no matter what we do here. So we can't play around that. The play lines open to me are Riftbolt the Swift Spear, pass turn at 13, take 7. Hope they do something stupid. Or we rip a path. Alternatively, I could spike their face, light up the stage, and hope to hit a path. I think that gives us the best chance here. At least gives us the most information. Another Lutz. Does 1 point of damage make a difference? So if they have Bolt, Bolt would put us to 11, Scourge would grow to a 9, and then we're just dead. But does that make a difference if we take a point of damage? I think we have to take the gamble. I think we're pretty likely dead next turn anyway, but this at least maybe gives us the opportunity to get a little bit lucky. But I do think we're probably just dead here this turn. If we somehow survive this turn and rip the remaining Boros charm, would we stay alive? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, go to 5. Dash Shadow. Rift Bolt. Okay, that would cost me my entire turn. Yep, no combination of cards here allows us to do this, so... Well, that was rough. We'll play one more match. So I think my initial thought process of this deck being a little too clunky is holding true here. I don't hate the idea of a white splash in what would be traditional mono red prowess, but I'm not sure that hybridizing the shells are really the way to go about this. So 4, 6, 10. We only have 13 spells that actually target creatures, which is kind of low even for burn. The 4 bolts, the 2 blazes, and then the 7. Oh, lordy, lordy. Alright, so we can't keep this hand against the Obosh deck. I guess we keep this hand and take a ton of damage. Because Obosh means mono red, most likely. Yep. Opponent with the billions and billions of creatures served. Opening hand. We're in a lot of trouble here either way. Yep. Wow. Yeah, that's a hand. Sure. So I still think those are the kind of hands that just remind you how brutally efficient Hayashi's various builds can be, despite all the uh, Bone Crusher, Giant, Seasoned Pyromancer, Blood Moon stuff, just like getting obliterated by a hand like that, and you're just like, yeah, that's what that deck can do. I think we mulligan this hand. What am I putting back as a question mark? I guess Lava Spike. Path on 1 if we absolutely have to. I didn't want to play in the Searing Blaze, plus they probably have an answer to Swizzle Spear here. I could guarantee ramp myself here with, well, most likely guarantee ramp myself. But I think holding on to that path is just... Keep the 4-lander. This hand isn't particularly great, but I do think we keep it. All right. Just clear that on the Blast Zone tech. Don't like ramping them necessarily, especially if they don't have another land, but this at least allows the Soul Scar Mage to survive. So obviously we know Firewalker is good as dead because of Blast Zone, but curious if they'll go down another land just to deal with our two creatures. Yep. Let's say we're unfavored from this position, but if we do rip a Bedlam Reveler somehow. Second Core Walker is fine, but they already have an answer with Blast Zone, so they just continue to draw all Blast Zones. This does mean we're pretty cold to Obosh itself, but opponent's getting a little too cute with their situation here, so they were hoping to use Stomp to kill the whatchamacallit this turn. Just kind of continue to flood out here. It's not ideal. Okay. Why would you do that now? Okay. Let's go with Blister Coil attack here. My opponent has made some very poor choices. I still have 2 cards in hand. This is our turn to draw something to end the game, hopefully. Well, that would probably be something to end the game, most likely. Somehow we won that insane match. So, just looking at this list, you know, it has one of the weaknesses of Burn that I've been talking about of late, which is the inability to answer 1-mana creatures, especially on the draw at parity. You know, you really only have bolts, which answer creatures. So, you know, your opponent, if they lead on an Arbor Elf or a Goblin Guide or a 1-mana creature, be it Soulscar Mage, Bomat Courier, Hex Drinker. You know, there's a lot of cards that just are in the format right now and really get under what Burn is doing. Or the creature part of what Burn's doing, answer part. And I'm really starting to lean towards... I wonder if Burn should be going towards Seal of Fire or Burst Lightning or something just to have another 1-mana play that answers the creature immediately. So we're on the play. We have no idea what our opponent's playing. I think this hand's fine. Like, we have 12 points of Burn in hand. We have a Manamorphose, so we have potentially a quick... potentially have access to a quick Bedlam Reveler should we draw one. Breeding Pool tapped go. So this is either Uro Pile or Infect that didn't want to play into known burn spells. That pause there is leading me to believe that they're on Uro Pile. Why you'd consider Force of Negationing those in particular, I don't know. Okay, so maybe Sultai Uro Pile? Well, I mean, put it with an awkward start, so... Can we kill them through an Uro next turn? Maybe? If they don't have a removal spell? And no Force of Negation? I'd be asking a lot to go right here. Alright, I feel like our opponent has a Archmage's Charm here, so I'm just going to attack, see what they do. Fatal Push, sure. Just pass turn. I don't really care if they bring that back. Nope, they choose not to. Fair enough. It's going to continue passing turn. No reason to play into this much open mana. So it doesn't seem likely that they have Hour of Promise, because I feel they would have jammed Hour of Promise here. So now we can threaten lethal at any time. Sure. Feels like they have Mana Leak or Force of Negation there. So I'm going to start off by threatening with Bolt a little bit here. I didn't use a counterspell. Interesting. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. So I think I'm just going to Manamorphose here at end of turn just to thoroughly confuse them. What is going on with their hand? Yeah. Apparently they just have a bunch of chill spells. And no Uro, huh? That's really awkward. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ooh. But notably, what, 4 to 5 blue sources? Okay. Yep. Feels like we're about in garbage time for us. Sure. I have a suspicion this is going to get countered. Yep, and now they get to put something back on top of their deck. Sure. So we know minimum we have to fight through at least one counter spell. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6 blue mana, so basically do or die here. Know they have Archmage's Charm. So that's the one they're going to lead off on. Wait, what? Why? That's way too cute. Well. There's no way we should have won that game. Absolutely no way we should have won that game. Stirring Blaze is out. At least some of the Rift Bolts, sporting in Roiling Vortex, sporting in Surgical Extraction. Could bring in Cage, but I think that feels a little eh. So I guess I bring one Rift Bolt back in. Bring in Surgical primarily to combat Uro and maybe to combat Mystical Sanctuary. This hand's okay-ish. Bedlam Reveler makes things a little bit awkward. Don't really have any way to fight like a turn 3 Uro, so... Not sure if they're repping Fatal Push here or if they're repping Spell Snare. Either way, I'm not willing to play into a Spell Snare. So if they cast Push at the end of turn, then I'll Boros Charm them in response. Is this Soulscar Mage likely to be worth more than 4 points of damage? I don't think so. Not when we saw multiple Abrupt Decays and at least one Fatal Push out of them game number 1. Are they really going to go for this play? Yeah. Once again, they're strongly representing Spell Snare here. Okay, never mind. They're just kind of whatever. Never auto pass when you have Force of Negation in your deck. One, two, three. Uro-chan. Sure. Take cards out of your graveyard. Okay, so you're gonna Ether Gust us or Mana Leak us? One, two, three. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we top that. So they are drawing Archmage's Charm here. Elder Gargaroth, sure. Decide to make a beast. I guess because they're getting Uro back this turn anyway. So I guess we're going to be bringing in at least one, maybe two Path to Exile here. At least one Path to Exile over the Rift Bolts. Don't think we want too many more than that. So I want to thank you guys for hanging out, guys and gals, I suppose, hanging out tonight with my weird pile from one of my user submitted deck lists. It's been a weird journey. This hand plays. Did board out Searing Blazes, right? Yeah. So making sure kind of is important with sequencing with our fetch lands. This is one of those things where I can fetch to Finn and not feel bad about it. Our opponent showed a willingness to try to attack our mana with Field of Ruin, so I want to leave as many basics in my deck as I can. Opponent could easily have a Fatal Push here, but it's kind of whatever. We draw our 1-of Path, of course, because we're a champ like that. Now the rest of our hand's kind of hot garbage. Fatal Push. See, I don't like this because we've already shown our opponent Boros Charm, and just getting blown out in that situation by a Boros Charm off of a sure. 1, 2, 3. Oh, they're going to have an Uro. Yep. Of course they are. We're 1 mana exactly short of casting it. Which is disappointing. Because if we could resolve this, I think we'd be in good shape, but barring our opponent casting another Elder Gargaroth. Hello there. They don't have another land, so you're saying we might have a chance. Can I find a surgical extraction? Yeah. So we don't want to cast our Bedlam Reveler first phase, because Cryptic Command counterbalance would be pretty bad. Counterbalance. Just gonna go to combat first, see what they do. You ever wanted a Bedlam Reveler into a Bedlam Reveler? That your opponent was even nice enough to put back on top of your deck? Just don't draw a fetch land. I'm honestly surprised they left Drown the Lock on top, but I guess it makes sense. Roof. Okay. Basically, if they have anything, we get blown out here. Of course, they have Mana Leak. A frustrating way to lose to Uro Pile. We know they have Drown the Lock in hand, so... So probably a land. We already know this isn't resolving, so... I would say good games, but it never feels good to lose to this deck. It's a very long, frustrating league. So, thought process on this deck is, I think the thing that I said at the beginning is just true. It's just too clunky for what it's trying to do. I don't hate like a small white splash for traditional mono red prowess with like the Soul Scar, Swift Spear, Bedlam Reveler package with like like Burst Lightning, Firebolt, that kind of stuff. I don't hate that idea. I just think that this setup is just too clunky. Or even running like traditional burn with like a couple Bedlam Revelers in the deck, I could even be talked into experimenting with again. But I just think this particular like half and half approach to the deck just doesn't quite feel good enough, if that makes sense. And honestly, it just felt like there was a lot of matchups where we didn't have enough cards to bring in. So, but that's a whole nother story. And now you know the rest of the story. But I like the idea that we were trying, but just it didn't execute in practicality. So that's one of those things where it's just like, it's okay. The idea is interesting, but just feels a little too clunky. But that's going to be the wrap for the league and my wrap for the stream for the night. I want to thank everybody for hanging out tonight. If there's anybody that likes Legacy, I'm going to send you guys over to Strifo. He plays a ton of Legacy. He has his 4-color control deck that he plays called the Strifo Pile. So go ahead and say hi to him. And I hope you all have a good night. Thanks for hanging out. And I hope you guys have a good evening. This has been John for MTG Nexus.